everyone, and welcome. My name is Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, bringing you practical tips on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. And I have a very special guest, as you can see with me today, Udo Erasmus. Welcome, Udo.
Hi, glad to be on.
It's great to have you. I've been following you a long time now on especially on LinkedIn, where you're posting regularly. Good to see you do that. Some great tips, some great little videos, and very enriching material. And I've also been a fan of your products, which I have right here, your famous Udo's oil.
Udo's oil, yeah.
So I'm going to actually went on your website, and you have your own bio that you wrote, but I kind of shortened it. So this is from Udo, but a shortened version. After being poisoned by pesticides in 1980, Udo seriously turned his passion and attention to health. He obsessively studied scientific literature, created a method for making good oils with health in mind, developed the first ever flaxseed oil, authored several books on the effects of oils on health, fats and oils, fats that heal, fats that kill, choosing the right fats, omega-3 cuisine, and enthusiastically educated the public in about 40 countries on the effects of oils on health and disease. His Udo Choice product still sells all over the world. Udo has had the pleasure and honor to grace the stages with luminaries like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra, keynoted international conferences, and lectured in conferences on 5 continents. So that's quite a background. I know there's a lot more to you than what I just read. Mm-hmm. You're also a biochemist.
Biochemist and genetics was where I ended up in my studies.
Okay.
But also I also have a master's degree in counseling psychology.
Right. And
a few other things.
So you're well-rounded.
I went to school far too long.
Well, we're profiting from your education and obviously your experience in applying all that over the years and working with people and experimenting. One of the things I see on your website, udoerasmus.com, which I caught my attention, and I want to start, I guess, the interview with that. It says the key to experiencing perfect health is to live lit up from within. So that's a cool little statement, but I'd like you to elaborate on what you mean by that.
Yeah, like what the hell does that mean? Right?
And how does that relate to health?
So just one thing, if you call me Udo, that's even better than Udo.
Oh, sorry.
I get called both, but Udo is
Udo.
That's okay,
Udo.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Udo Erasmus. Okay, so living lit up from within. When we ask you, like if I ask you, Stephen, whose body is that? I point at you. Whose body is that? What's your answer?
It's my body.
Yeah, most people would say, this is my body.
Right.
But do you know what you've just said? You've just said you're not the body. You've just said that you own the body.
Right.
That the body is your property. That you are the owner of the body. Now, who owns your body? Who do you have to be the owner of your body?
Who do I have to be the owner of my body?
Yeah, you're not the body. We live like we were with the body, but the truth is we know we're not the body.
I have to be the being inside the body.
Yeah, you have to be life.
Right.
Life owns the body. Life weighs nothing and runs everything. Everywhere present in every cell in your body. All the power in you is life. So it's all powerful in you. And it knows everything about you because it can run 60 trillion cells all at the same time and make sure that every cell gets the nutrients it needs to be able to do its work. So you are life in your individual essence. So now what is life? Okay, well, you're actually a solar energy gadget. It begins with solar energy. Solar energy radiates from the sun, and where the earth blocks the rays from going further, it radiates onto green leaves, green plants. The green plants, electrons get excited and then bond between atoms to make molecules. And that solar energy is stored in the bonds between the atom that makes those molecules. You eat those molecules and they get digested, then they get absorbed into your body, then they go into your cells. In your cells, those bonds are broken, and the solar energy stored in those bonds is now released in your body. That's your life. Now we call it life. See, so it started a solar energy. That same energy released in your body is called life or life energy. And that's the one that runs everything. It's the master of your life because it runs everything. And it's unconditional, empowering love, because no matter what you're doing or what you're thinking or whatever's going on, 24/7, it's taking care of you. 24/7, 365, lifelong. Never goes on strike, never asks for a raise, never takes a weekend off, never beats you up when you're nasty to it. You say, I hate my life. It doesn't beat you up. It just keeps loving you. It just keeps carrying out, right? So now that's life energy. Now, when you look at that life energy, that energy is the CEO of your body. It's the master in your body, because it's the master of everything that goes on in your body. It is your greatest expert on how to live your life in your body, right? And you could add a few things. You could add a few. It's the king, it's the president, it's the prime minister of your body. And it's the leader. And if 8 billion people were aware of that leader in their body, which is in the best position to make decisions in the trench each one of us lives in, we would have a leadership model around the world where everybody is following the same leader, but from within themselves. That's like a very different than some guy in Ottawa or wherever in Washington, D.C., some guy, oh yeah, he's the leader. Well, he doesn't know what the hell's going on in my backyard. He doesn't know what my needs are. He couldn't possibly. How could he? He can't even keep his own family together, right? So you start thinking about, well, leadership and hierarchies, they have some usefulness in crisis situations, but when it comes to the day-to-day, morning, sunrise to sunset, sleeping, eating, taking care of the children, and all of those, life is a better leader. And it's life in the child that creates the child, and it's life in the mother that supports and nurtures the child, and it's life in the father that supports the father's life and allows him to be able to play small roles in the continuation of life on this planet. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's
now, can I say one?
Yeah.
I will say one more thing.
Go ahead.
When you talk about that master within you, that is what every one of the great masters talked about, whether it's Buddha or Christ or Krishna or any of those guys, maybe even Socrates. They talked from knowledge of that master, because they took time to sit still, do nothing, go from doing to being, because being is more foundational than doing, because you can be without doing, but you can't do without being. And because they immersed their focus in the feeling of that energy, in the experience of that energy, the life energy, the solar energy within them, they could speak from the wisdom that is embedded in that energy. And by the way, talking about health, that energy is perfect health, because it doesn't need vitamin C, and it doesn't need omega-3s, and it doesn't need food, and it's formless and indestructible, and it never gets sick and never dies.
That's a great explanation. So while you're talking, though, I'm thinking, because the other question was about, perfect health.
Yeah.
And you've explained how this purity, this perfect being, energy is existing within us. So how do we end up with all this disease if we're powered by this perfect energy, the solar energy, as you describe it? Where does the disease kick in that we see so much around us? I mean, I just went through a personal, medical emergency where I required, open heart surgery to address blocked arteries, which was a shock to me. It was, I guess, terrible experience, but it's turning out okay. I'm still alive. So let's talk about disease and in relation to what you just described.
Okay, the short, smart-ass answer is disease comes from listening to all the idiots that live out of line with nature and tell you what you should do, and you listen to it. So there's idiots telling you, and then we're idiots for listening to it.
So, right? But what is it that we're listening to and following that screws up our health?
Well, because first of all, your body is a terminal condition.
Right.
That's a fact. It has a form, and anything that has a form, eventually that form will break down. Right? The reason why life is it can't get sick and never dies, it's because it's formless to begin with. It's a flow of energy. There's nothing there to get discombobulated. Whereas the body is a composite of all kinds of things: 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids, 2 essential fatty acids that are essential nutrients the body can't make, so has to get from outside. But when you eat white sugar and white flour and white oils and you fry your foods, then not only are you not getting the essential nutrients, you're also making unnatural molecules. And your genetic program that life made over eons only knows how to work in the natural system. Because that's what it came out of, and that's what it was made to live adapted to. So what does it look like if you live in line with nature? Life's mandate for creatures that eat is fresh, whole, raw, organic, and for human beings, mostly plant-based. That's the mandate. So then you look at how far from that mandate is white sugar, white flour, white oils, and fried foods. Yesterday, I did a talk, a radio show. And they said, "How do you eat?" Well, the older I get, the more I go to mostly raw, mostly plant-based, organic, mostly, and fresh as much as possible. And somebody called in and said, "Wow, that's she wasn't trying to be nasty. She said, "Wow, that's so extreme." And of course, I wasn't quick enough to realize it. Then I sat back and I thought about it and I said, no, that's not extreme. That's normal. What's extreme is white sugar, white flour, fried foods, and damaged oils. That's extreme. And obviously, if we're living that far out of line with nature, all kinds of things can go wrong, depending on exactly how, in what way we're out of nature with it. Other than the aging factor, which is that the translation from life to the body is not perfect. The life is perfect, but the translation is not. And so you get fire in your body, that's your energy, but you get sparks, and those sparks can do damage in your tissues and give you inflammation. And mostly inflammation is what causes most of the problems, including clogged arteries. Inflammation, where's the inflammation come from? Either not enough of the right molecules or too many of the wrong molecules. That's the main reasons. So, right? Or not enough spark, you get a good fire out of sugar and white flour and white oils, but all the spark control has been removed. So all three of those will give you a higher risk of inflammation, and inflammation is behind almost everything that goes wrong in the body.
So what you're saying, and I mean, I've transitioned or moving towards full plant-based diet,
Mhm.
as as much raw as I can, cooking without oil, uh, kind of making like dishes that don't require frying. Um, but what you're saying is really going against what I most people, maybe 95% or more, have been brought up and are used to eating.
Yeah,
So how does
yeah.
one make
Go
that
ahead.
transition?
Go ahead and tell me it's what I'm saying is extreme. Right?
Well, it's become extreme because
Because
we've
we're
gone
used to
in the
something
wrong
else.
direction, I guess.
Because we're not listening to this, we're not listening to nature. We think we're smarter than nature, and we think we're smarter than whatever you call it, God, life, solar energy. We think we're smarter. And then we think that we can just do anything we feel like doing and that there should be no consequences. That's like, freedom without responsibility. That's delusion. So we live in delusion that we can do all these things that are totally out of line with nature and that would have no effect on us. But everything has an effect. Every action has a reaction. Every molecule that you put in your body that doesn't fit properly in it will create a little bit of disturbance. Now that won't kill you, not one molecule. But what if, like on oils, tablespoon of oil, you get 60 quintillion damaged molecules. So in just a tablespoon of oil, before you fry it, just the cooking oil, you get more than 1 million damaged molecules for every cell in your body, for every one of your body, 60 trillion cells. And you think that's not going to make a difference when you do that, not only 1 tablespoon, but 2 to 4. And then you do that not one day, but year, 10 years, 30 years. So you multiply that, and then you fry those oils on top of it. You think that's not going to have, at some point, have an effect on you?
Well,
Of course it's going to have an effect.
I'm a perfect example because even though I've moved to healthy eating over the last several years and probably full plant-based over the last year, I didn't remove the frying totally until now.
Yeah.
And this is where it brought me. I mean, not just the food, obviously. I guess there's genetics too, because my dad had heart disease, my mom as well, and my dad needed bypass surgery. But
But you don't know whether that's genetic, because that could have been food habits too.
yeah, it could have been as well,
Right?
for sure.
Because food habits run in families too.
Yeah, and it definitely was. I mean, I was brought up on, eating a lot of meat, a lot of fat, and I didn't know any better until later in life, and probably it was too late to reverse, I guess, a lot of the damage that was done. But
Well, yeah, when and I don't want to just call everybody an idiot, because we're all idiots in that regard. One of this thing is that the industry that makes the damaged oils
right,
doesn't tell you that there's 50 quintillion damaged molecule in that oil if it's 1% damaged. They don't talk about the damage. So most people who haven't dug into it to try and find out what's really true about what we're doing. So we're basically taking it on trust, and we trust the experts who hide that information more than we trust life that would actually tell us what's true, right? Which is interesting. So we trust what can't be trusted, and we don't trust what can be trusted, right? How interesting is that? And why don't we trust what's inside of us? Because we don't go inside. Our senses take us out into the world to deal with stuff. It's about survival. Every time something changes, you got to look or listen. Oh, is that friend or foe? Do I run? Do I fight? Or do I ignore it because it's irrelevant? And so you're always out there in that world, and that world is never stable, and that is never a world that gives you foundation. But going back, bringing your awareness back, your focus back into where it was before you were born, in your mother's womb, I call it the Buddha tank, right? Because in there, your focus was inside, at rest, in its source, in life, and behind that in awareness, in pure awareness. And because in the womb, there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. Everything was taken care of. It was pretty safe. You didn't even have to breathe. You had no concepts. You had no ideas. You didn't have fights between the conservatives and the Republicans, right? The liberals, right? You didn't have any of those thoughts. You didn't have any bad information. You didn't have any history or culture or religion. You didn't even know who your mother was, right? So inside, in stillness, and basically you were in deep meditation on life inside. But then you came out, and then the journey out began, and you had to get to know the world. And this one is automatic, but coming back is not automatic, because there's nothing inside of you going, hey, look at me, blah, 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 you know? So nothing, you're not automatically drawn back to your core, except through heartache. When your heart aches, you know, this uncomfortable feeling in your chest, triggered by somebody dumps you, somebody betrays you, somebody dies, something you've invested in goes sour. You know, there's lots, I got 10 pages of words that people use for this, triggered by so many things, but this feeling is not about those things. The trigger is not the cause. The feeling is the feeling of disconnection from ourselves. And it's actually the heart calling our focus to come back home inside to its source in life, where unconditional love is felt, and empowering love is felt, and all-encompassing peace is felt. That's our foundation. That's the foundation of the universe. Peace is everywhere, but you only know that when peace is looking. And for peace to be looking, you have to bring your focus to the core of your being. And then out of the love comes inspired purpose. And when you're in peace inside and feel loved inside and are shining into the world with inspired purpose, you're going to have the most amazing life. And when you have the most amazing life, you will do whatever it takes to make it as long as possible, because it's so good. And the further you get away from that, the less juice there's in your life, and you can get so depressed that you'll actually destroy your body or kill yourself, because you just don't get that life is worth living. Only because you're not looking for whether worth living is living in you, right?
So I want to come back to that in a minute, but just want to jump back to the oil.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the refined oils that we use for cooking, and maybe people use them in their salads or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but then you came out with these oils for the omegas.
Yeah.
369. This is, I guess, your basic oil.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this different, and why is this so important for a good health?
Yeah. Well, number one, oils are the most neglected area in nutrition, and more health problems come from damaged oil than any other part of nutrition, because they're the most sensitive molecules in nutrition, and they're damaged by light, by oxygen, by heat quite easily. So they need the most care, but the truth is we give them the least care. We throw them in the frying pan and turn them into smoke. You know, when you turn oil into smoke, you ain't got oil anymore, right? You've damaged the molecules, you've changed it. And smoke is carcinogenic and inflammatory, okay? So I was looking how to get healthy when I got poisoned. And I had the background in biochemistry and genetics to be able to read the journals. And I was looking at everything because I wanted to get healthy, which means I had to raise my standards for food, water, and air, because your body turns over 98% every year. So if I raise my standard today, in 1 year, will have a body 98% rebuilt to a higher standard. That's called healing. That's why healing is possible, because the body's always turning over. So by making changes, you could change what your body's made of. So I'm looking at all of this, trying to figure it out. And I got stuck on oils because, and this is one thing that happened. I read one study and said, omega-6 is essential, which means you can't make it. You got to have it. You got to get it from outside. If you don't get enough, you'll go down. your health goes down. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. But if you bring enough back before you die, all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows what to do when you take responsibility at your mouth to make sure all of the essential building blocks land in the body. So that was the one study. And the next study I read, it says omega-3 gives you cancer and kills you. And I'm going, what? It's essential for health. I can't live without it. And then when I take it, it gives me cancer and kills me. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And that contradiction was driving me so crazy. I had to look deeper, and I started to look at how oils are made. And now I understood it. Everything we blame on oils and fats, almost everything, should be blamed on the damage done by processing of these sensitive molecules in order to give oils no taste and a long shelf life, right? And so I said, you know what? I can't get healthy on oils like this. We should make them with health in mind. I knew what the issues were. So I developed a very tight system where when the seed, from the time the oil is in the seed, where it's protected by nature's packaging, through the pressing and the filling and the filtering and the settling, till it's in a brown glass bottle, glass because plastic leaches into oil, that doesn't belong in your body, brown glass bottle, in a box to cut out the light, in the fridge to lower the temperature, in the factory, in the stores, and at home. And you don't use those oils for frying. You go back to using water. You don't burn your food and make it carcinogenic. And you add the oil to foods, either cold or warm foods, or foods after they come off the heat.
Now, a lot of people say, well, I get my omegas from fish.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
We have to look at two things in oils. One is the food oil foundation. These are major nutrients, like 2 to 4 tablespoons, which is 28 to 56 grams, is about the ballpark for most people. Fish oils, you get 1 to 3 grams. That's not enough oil for human consumption. And the idea that you can wreck your oils and fry your oils and then just throw fish oil capsules at it and fix it, that's crazy. You have to, the foundation is wrecked. You have to fix the foundation. Now, once you fix the foundation, you could see maybe a supplement if it's not damaged. Fish oils tend to be very damaged because they're even more sensitive than the cooking oils, like 25 times more sensitive to damage by light, oxygen, heat. But maybe you could get krill oil. It's just made by a different, and you can also get algae oil, right? You only get 1 to 3 grams of that. So that might get you additional benefit if you fix the foundation, but it ain't gonna fix the foundation for you. So you need to make a distinction between fixing your food oil foundation, which is the most important aspect, and whether a supplement would help you more than that or not. Now, the issue with the food oil foundation is that 99% of the population does not get enough omega-3s, foundational omega-3s, to do the conversion into fish oils, because your body can convert the foundation into fish oils if you got enough starting material. So we addressed that issue. And the second one is you need to switch out the damaged omega-6s for omega-6s that are also made with health in mind. And then you need to get them in the right ratio, because they're both essential. But if you get the ratio too high in one, will crowd out the other, and too much of the other will crowd out the one. So you need to get the ratio right as well. So we deal with all of that to get people one thing that has the best ratio, made with health in mind, both essential fatty acids, never used for frying, but gets you the foundation you need optimized so that your body can make all the rest of it. And it's not just EPA and DHA and fish oils. There's a ton of molecules that are made out of the essential fatty acids. Like I would say there's hundreds, definitely dozens, but hundreds. And we're in the middle of researching them. We haven't done it all yet. There's so many they're such sensitive molecules. They can go in so many directions and then end up with so many properties, hormonal properties in every cell, regulatory properties in every cell in your body. And in very powerful anti-inflammatory molecules that do the spark control that we talked about at the beginning, right? So the omega-3s give you the fire, and then part of them is turned into spark control. So here's one molecule that gives you both. It's the only molecule I know in nutrition that does that. Usually you get, carbs are fire, fats are fire, like saturated fats are fire, but no spark control. The spark control is in the seeds and nuts, in other, like antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. And here's the only molecule that gives you the fire, gets you the best fire, omega-3 does. 40 to 60% increase in stamina, both mental and physical. If you take optimum amount, which is about a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. So for most people, 2 to 4 tablespoons. So it gives you more energy, and at the same time, it protects you from a high heat, a bright fire throwing more sparks. So it's like the screen in front of the fireplace that prevents sparks from flying onto your carpet and burning holes in your carpet. Well, in your body, the similar thing happens. It's just you're not a carpet. You are fire in water. But the tissues are subject to free radical damage. And you want to prevent that. And omega-3s are the only molecules who give you the fire and the spark control at the same time. Otherwise, you got fire, fuels for fire, and then you got to get your spark control from spices and herbs and whole foods.
Yeah, I've also been reading a lot lately about how toxic fish are, especially the farm raised, like in Chile, the Atlantic salmon. And so
yeah, the oceans are our sewer.
Right.
All the junk we dump on land ends up going downhill. All ends up in the water, and the oil soluble toxins end up in the oil, in the creatures in the ocean, and they concentrate up the food chain. So at the bottom of the food chain are algae, but they're only 4% fat. So you can't squeeze an algae and get oil out of it. You have to grow them in tanks and feed them sugar, and then they turn into 50% fat, and then you basically float off the fat. So we can work with that in captivity, but not in the ocean. But then the krill eat the algae, and then the little fish eats the krill, and then a big fish eats the little fish. And each time one of them is eaten, because the body is not capable of getting rid of these toxic molecules very well, they pile up and they concentrate up the food chain. So the higher you eat on the food chain, the more toxins you're going to get from the stuff that we've thrown in the environment that has turned the ocean into a sewer, but frankly has turned the land into relatively sewer too, right?
So if someone wants to make that shift towards perfect health, what do you recommend? Like, you mentioned it before, but I just wanted you to reiterate it. What should we be doing? I mean, I'm going to come back to the thing about going inside or connecting inside, but from a dietary perspective, what is your recipe, let's call it?
Okay, I would say this. First, understand that nature's mandate for physical health was to eat fresh, whole, raw, organic, and for people mostly plant-based. The research is pretty solid now, even though there's marketing that says, no, that's not true, eat your steak, eat your eggs, eat your bacon, but that's pushed by people who make money selling those products, like everything is, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing. If you understand that, then you could do an assessment. Okay, where am I at with that? Oh, is my bread whole grain bread, or is it white bread? Right? Am I using sugar, or am I chewing cane? Right? Or is my food whole? Is my food fresh? Is my food raw? Is my food organic? Or am I frying the hell out of everything? And one of the first things I would recommend people do is, if you have a frying pan, just about everybody does, go and get it, pull it out, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the side of the head with it so it's associated with pain, and then throw it out and give up frying and return to cooking foods and water. And then people say to me, oh no, but I love the taste of burnt food. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just say that. You got it with mother love, so you're confusing mother love with the awful taste of burnt stuff on food. Because if you scrape that burnt stuff off and put it together and take a tablespoon of that and eat it, it squeaks between your teeth like chalk on a blackboard. It's bitter, it's acrid, it tastes disgusting. But you wolf it down, you don't even taste it. And then people say, oh, eat rabbit food, no taste in rabbit food. You know what? The steak is what's bland. And what does a cook do when he makes a steak? Well, he puts onions on it, or he puts garlic on it, or he puts rosemary on it, or he puts turmeric in it, or he puts curry in it. And guess what? All the tastes come from plants. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent. Puts a little pepper on it, puts a little cayenne on it. You want bland animal products to taste like something, you throw plants on them, and then you lie about it and say plants are rabbit food. What the hell? Right? And people, I've been doing this for 40 years, right? So I hear all that stuff, right? It's like, wow, isn't that extreme? Fresh, whole, raw, organic, and mostly plant-based? No, what's extreme is what's killing you.
So move towards.
So once you understand that, then look at what you're doing, and then take steps. Right. And try to do it a little faster than you did, so you get there before the heart.
Do you have any like free resource on your website with a step-by-step process or a guide of what people can do?
No, I haven't done that because you have eyes and you have ears and you have a brain and you're in your house.
Right.
You can look at what's there.
Right.
And it's always switch out from processed to less processed to not processed.
Okay.
From fried to cooked in water to blanched or steamed to raw as much as you can. Of course, if it's contaminated, you have to cook it to kill the bugs.
Right.
Right. So there are always limits on it. And grow a garden. If you live in a house, grow a garden.
Right.
Just dig up your stupid lawn, right? And grow a garden. And then you know that you're getting fresh food because you know what you put in it. Right. And you know if there's pesticides on it or not, because if they are, then you're putting them on.
Yeah.
That is also really good for helping the kids learn about patience and seasons and things taking time. And if you're in an apartment, then grow some herbs on your windowsill, like green onions and
I actually have a thing called a tower garden where I can grow up.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And I have lettuce and herbs and
Tower gardens are a fairly new invention.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense, but you got to make clear that the soil is clean and that the water you water it with is clean, and that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah.
Right? Because the plant makes everything, makes the oxygen you need, makes all the minerals and vitamins, pulls them up. Plants suck rocks. You can't suck rocks and get your minerals. They can.
Right.
They make those available for you. They make they make the proteins and they make the fats and they make the vitamins. Like they make the fiber that's important for digestion, and they grow probiotics on their surface. Probiotics grow on their surface, and if they're raw, there's enzymes in them that do 60% of the digestion for you. That takes a load off your digestion and your immune system. So then your immune system can go after other jobs that need to be done in the body. So that anything you can do that brings your food home to you fresher and cleaner is a good thing to invest in.
So let me ask you a personal question when it comes to this whole food diet. I am on a whole food diet now, low fat, no cooking with oil, but I did go through this heart surgery and don't want to stay on medication. Is it feasible that by staying active and on a whole plant food based diet with low fat that I could live drug free?
Yes, there is a guy by the name of Esselstyn.
Yes.
Dr. Esselstyn.
Yeah.
They do that every day.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're very strict, plant-based,
Yeah.
They don't even like oils, but that's because they don't understand oils, because they're thinking, all the research is done on damaged oils. So they think all oils are damaging. But they're not if you make them with health in mind.
Yeah, I was actually watching one of his patients who avoided surgery, the bypass surgery, by going extreme, shifting to the and that was 10 years ago.
But he didn't go extreme. He went normal.
He went normal.
He went off of extreme to get normal.
Right.
Because normal is health.
I get it.
Yeah.
So let me go back to the part about
so then the thing is, and then take steps. You know, so if you can't handle eating all raw foods, well, have an extra salad, you know, or eat one more carrot raw, right? So you take steps in each part of it. You know, if you're eating, I had a woman in Japan, she said, you know, I want to eat organic, but organic eggs cost 6 times more than non-organic eggs. And so I can't do it. So I said, well, can you afford 1 a month? She said, oh yeah, no problem. Can you afford 2? Oh, no problem. We got to the point that she could afford 3 organic eggs a week. So why don't you do what you can? Because every time you do what you can, you get a little bit of benefit. You're also taking your money out of people who don't care about your health. So you're doing something good. So instead of saying, well, I can't do it perfectly, so I ain't going to do anything, do what you can. Right. Small steps. Take a month, take 3 months, take a year, take 2 years, take 5 years to get there.
Go progressively towards.
But be clear what the goal is and take steps towards it. That's it. You know, I'm just talking business now, right?
Right.
How do you do a business? You know, you get your goal clear and then you take steps in that direction. Absolutely. And if one step doesn't work, you try something else. But you never lose sight of the goal because you're trying to be successful. Well, health is a business venture in which your life depends on being successful, right?
Well, it requires personal leadership. And that's, I think, what we need to cultivate more in this world is encouraging people to take personal leadership. And that means taking responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, for your health, for your well-being. And that requires becoming conscious, which leads me back to what you were talking about being lit up from inside and being able to connect to that being inside that is not affected by all the stuff around us. So how can people do that? How can they become more connected inside of themselves with that experience?
Okay. Again, see where you're at. If your heart is aching, the first thing I say to people, you know, we distract ourselves. When our heart feels hard, you know, when we have that feeling, people usually they distract themselves, or they deny it, or they try to ignore it, or they try to explain it away by a trip in their head, or they blame it on somebody. And what I say to people is, no. Feel it. Be with it. Acknowledge it. It's not going to kill you. You might cry, possibly. That's okay. But don't get stuck in the tears. Just feel it. Feel it. Feel it. Feel it. Feel it. Maybe acknowledge it. Maybe embrace it. Maybe be grateful for the fact that if it wasn't for this ache that is calling you to come back home inside to where your magnificent lives, you would never find your way back. It's like hunger to food or thirst to water. Heartache is to wholeness. Heartache is to magnificence. Heartache is to beauty. Heartache is to love, right? So this is the ache is the call for you to come home to the love that you are, and give that energy, give that time. So I say, sit still every day, one way or another. Make time, just like you make time for the toilet and make time for your fried egg breakfast, and time for dressing, and time for undressing, and time for washing the dishes, and time for doing the gardening. You know, we make time for everything except the one thing that has the most beauty and most treasure in us, which is our own life. So make time every day. And I say to people, okay, just close your eyes and see how still you can get. And see how deeply you can go into that stillness. And see how long you can stay there. And while you're doing that, breathe lightly and slowly, slow it down a little. Don't push it or pull it, but just slow everything down a little bit. And look around and listen in what you find there. What are you going to find there? And it takes time because we're not good at it. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, I did that and it's boring. So I say, fall in love with boredom. Or notice how peaceful it is in that boredom. See, you were in your mother's womb for 9 months in that boredom and you were not bored. In fact, you see people, you leave fetuses, little smile on a fetus's face, right? You've seen that? You know, when people have pictures of it, and just hanging out. Because that's your foundation. That's your foundation. If you're not in touch with the peace that is the foundation of your and all existence, then you're living without foundation. And when you look at how crazy things are in the world, where does that come from? It's because living up without foundation. I came out of the Second World War. If the people in Europe had cultivated what I'm talking about just now, when they had the luxury to do that between the First and the Second World War, so between 1918 and 1939, so they had 20 years. Nobody practiced it. If they had practiced it, there would not have been a Second World War. You could apply that to Russia and the Ukraine. If people had done that, because 1945 was the last war now, right? Now we're talking 70 years. If we had taken that time to cultivate the peace that is the core of every human being on this planet, no matter where they are, would there have been a war between Russia and Ukraine? If everybody said, wow, I feel so taken care of. Wow, life is so good. Oh my God, I love this peace I can feel. Would there have been a war between, if everybody said that? Not even possible, right? And so what I say is, you know, and we live in crazy times where lots of things are getting worse, in my opinion. That's because we're not taking the time, or not enough of us are taking the time to cultivate that depth of being that makes it not, that recognizes it's not important whether you're on the right side of the argument or on the left side. You're still a human being, you know, who has to eat and pee and, you know, and wants to live a life, and he wants to care for the children, and, you know, wants to live, you know, wants to do something that can be helpful to having quality in your life. So that's a way to do it. And if you do that and you say, I got to a point where I was doing all of that, trying to figure it out. And I got to a point where one evening I was in the mountains in Colorado, and the lady I was with, we're living there for the summer. And one evening I said to her, you know, I know there's a perfection within me. And I sort of tapped my chest when I said it. I know I'm not connected with it. And I need to find someone who can show me a step. That was pretty clear. I was clear about my condition. It was the first time I ever admitted to somebody that I didn't have it all together, right? And I said that, and the next morning, through crazy circumstances, I heard about somebody who was called at that time Perfect Master, and it was click, click, perfection in my mind. I got to see this guy. And he then showed me a method for taking my awareness inside. And I probably would never have found that on my own. And I thought it would be much more complicated than what he showed me, because we had made it to the moon, and that was really complicated, but we had done it. So I figured peace was even more complicated than going to the moon. But it was important to me because I came out of a war, and peace was always a thing for me. And then I realized that I would stop rising to the bait if I actually did the practice, because it just made me calmer, took me out of my head, took me away from all of my triggers about things. You know, not instantly, but I became less. I didn't rise to the bait, and I didn't end up in arguments all the time. And I realized, well, 6 months in, I said, wow, this actually works. So I've been now doing it for 50 years. I was 30 when I met him. I'm 80 now. And I do it every day. Literally every day, I give it time. You know, why? Because if you don't give peace time, which has to be deliberate, you're going to drift downhill, and downhill always ends up in the gutter. And tendency for the world is to do that. But in the midst of a lot of things going downhill in the world, you as an individual can actually be deepening the experience, better experience, and maybe be an influence to help other people head in that direction as well in their life. You can't make anybody do it, but you can be an influence in that. But you can only be an influence in that if you're actually experiencing. You know, it's like if you know what you're talking about, right? And the practice is how you get to the knowing of that experience.
Fantastic. Well, that was very informative, and I think a great place to stop.
Okay.
I want to thank you again, Udo. I got it right this time.
Yeah, thank you.
For your wisdom, your insight, and for sharing all this information. I'll put links to your website and other resources that you mentioned where people can find paths to inner experience.
Yeah, that's on udoerasmus.com, and on udoschoice.com, that's about the oil. And I also work with digestive enzymes and probiotics and greens.